On a bright Tuesday morning in 1962, any town, USA is buzzing with the excitement of the space race. You are sitting in your classroom at PS pick a number, and it smells like floor wax and fresh mimeographed ink. On your desk is a book with a bright glossy cover, and inside that book is a world which feels as safe as your own backyard. It's a world inhabited by three siblings that you think must be the most famous children in the world. I'm Philip Mershon. This is the Mid-Century Vault, and today we visit with three childhood friends, Sally, Dick, and Jane. And if you don't know them, come along anyway. They're pretty nice kids, though they do repeat themselves an awful lot. These first grade reading textbooks reached their cultural zenith in the 50s and early 60s, but the blueprint was drawn decades earlier in 1930 at the Scott Foresman publishing house. Two educators, Zerna Sharp, who came up with the characters, and William Gray, who supervised production, were proponents of the whole language, or the look-say approach, whereby children are taught to recognize whole words rather than phonetically breaking down the sounds of individual letters. They created the core family with the focus on the siblings Dick and Jane and their pets Spot, the black and white Cocker Spaniel, Puff, the ginger tabby kitty cat, and their stuffed teddy bear Tim. By the mid-40s, the heretofore unnamed baby character officially became Sally. While Dick and Jane were the responsible older role models, Sally was the mischievous one. She was always falling down or chasing the pets or saying the simple, funny, punchy lines that the readers would memorize first. At their height, Dick and Jane weren't just textbooks, they were educational empires. This look-say method taught sight words through relentless repetition. Come, Spot, come, jump up. See Puff jump? Jump up, Spot, jump up. Okay, Shakespeare it ain't, but it was effective. It was a method that built confidence in the student because by the time the child reached the end of the book, they hadn't just learned to read, they had memorized 5 new words in each segment of the story through rhythm and repetition. And it's estimated that in this era, 4 out of every 5 American children learned to read this way, and I was one of them. The illustrator, Eleanor Campbell, started the series and was with it throughout the 40s, and then Bob Childress took over the duties in the 50s, and then finally, during the Camelot early 60s, Richard Wiley was pushing the watercolor brush. Dick, Jane, and Sally lived in a world where the grass was always manicured, father was always home from the office by 5 p.m., and everybody was always impeccably dressed. It was the American dream in primary colors. But as the 60s progressed, that dream began to face some important and long overdue questions like, how come Dick and Jane live in a world that's entirely white and entirely middle class? In 1965, the Scott Foresman Company would try to answer the call for representation by introducing the new kid on the block, Mike, and his family. Mike and Dick were pals, and Mike had younger twin sisters, Pam and Penny, who were definitely younger than Jane and seemed to be about the same age, maybe a year older than Sally. But the cultural tide was moving faster than the printers could keep up with it. The Too Little Too Late gesture would be the last in the books of the Dick and Jane franchise. Because for the last decade, the reading wars had been heating up, and the 1955 book Why Johnny Can't Read had fired the opening shot. It argued that the look-say method was failing children by not teaching phonics. But this either-or argument rings false because according to my memory, we were being taught a combination of both in my New Jersey first grade classroom. Nonetheless, publication ended, and while the copies were still being sold, by the time the 70s arrived, the sun had set on the world of Dick and Jane. Of course, culturally speaking, they'd be a lot harder to dispense with. There was the great George Segal Jane Fonda movie, Fun with Dick and Jane, in 1977. And for those aficionados of adolescent boy humor, there's endless repetitive uses for the name Dick. Well, that's a wrap on episode 56. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons that keep the vault doors open. And until next time, I'm going to go finish reading Puff Wants to Play. I can't wait to see how it ends.